live. This is it. Your next installment, your next hit, your next dose of the Hardcore Marketing Show. And this is Casey Cheshire. I'm so excited to be here. We've got a lot of great stuff to talk about. Some's pretty nerdy, some's pretty fun. We've got an awesome guest today that I bumped into on World Tour. It was an event out in New York City. Joseph Yelle. He is the CEO of the Analytics Cloud Consulting Group. And he is the guy that I think about when I think about analytics, when I think about reporting, when I think about data. And data can lie and data can say absolutely nothing. And I spoke with him. I spoke with you only maybe 20 minutes. And I was like, okay, you understand this. So, man, thank you for being here today.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I got you on here because we talked a little bit earlier about the CSI, that Cheshire Success Index, that we were seeing a gap when Cheshire, we were doing consulting with people on marketing automation. By the way, this show is sponsored by Cheshire Impact, helping you maximize marketing automation. I got to make sure I get that in, right? Because, sponsors, paying the light bill. So Cheshire Impact, we're helping people maximize marketing automation. And sure enough, there's this gap between the tech side and people knew the tech side, but they're like, well, how do we actually do this? It's like they had the best lumber, the best equipment from Home Depot. And someone was like, here you go, build. And they're like, build what? And maybe I'll build a house. I don't know how to build a house. Like, what does it even look like? No blueprint, right? So the CSI, the Cheshire Success Index, was our creation. It's a maturity model for marketing automation. And now it's helping us bridge that gap. But I know when we were chatting, we hit a hot button, right? And you should have heard it last night. He was just ranting and raving. I hope we get more ranting and raving because this is the Hardcore Marketing Podcast, right? So there is a gap apparently on the analytics side too. There's a gap. People have some technology, but man, they have the analytics tools, but they don't, they're not using it. They're not getting any actionable data out of it. What?
Yeah, absolutely. So the gap is this idea that any person can be an analytics guru. It's this idea that, you give someone a hammer and they know how to build a house. Exactly like what you're talking about, right?
Man, I can't even hit a nail sometimes,
Yeah, right? Like I know people that can hit a nail in with one hit. And then I know people like literally, right?
Yeah.
Then I know people like myself who, take at least 20 hits to get that nail into the wall. So
now, how many times you smash that thing and it bends over?
I know it's my son
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's absolutely this idea of, well, the tools allow me to be a master carpenter, but realistically, being a master of something takes a hell of a lot more than just the tools you use.
Right.
It's the knowledge and the failures that create who you are and where you've become, where you are is in your mastery, right?
You know what? That gap is so prevalent. It's almost like anyone listening right now, it's like whether you know it or not, there is that gap in marketing. You need to be able to use reporting. You need to be able to have actionable data and results. You need to be able to call it out, call it what it is, not get it wrong. So are you going to teach me this right now? Is this what's going to happen?
On the fly, man. Yeah.
On the fly. Quick question. What is analytics? Because I've used Google Analytics and got my little certification back in the day, but that word gets thrown around all the time. And
sure.
I think you've got it in your company name, so you're going to be able to help me figure this out. So what really is analytics?
Yeah. So what I describe analytics as, there's different types of analytics. All right. So you've got this idea of exploratory analytics, okay, or ad hoc reporting, however you want to call it.
Okay.
And that's in the sense of you don't know what you're looking for. You really don't. You're just trying to look at this data and look at all of the information you have and say, well, that's interesting. Back in March, I saw a dip for America's sales, right? Huh. Well, what happened there? And then you drill into America's, and then you look across all these different dimensions across your data, and you say, well, maybe it was this team because I saw the dip on that team, but not across any of the others, right? And so that's more of the exploratory analytics. And And then you've got,
well, it's like, hold on a second. It's like surgery then, right? It's like we're not sure what's wrong with you. Let's poke around until we can find out.
Yeah. Well, hopefully most surgeries aren't that way, right?
True. True.
There are exploratory surgeries, absolutely.
No, I didn't find anything. Sorry.
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, happens.
Well, no, how do you? I guess you could easily fall in that trap of saying, "Well, America's sales dipped, and SpaceX just launched their heavy rocket, so." Whenever SpaceX launches a rocket, our sales go down.
False correlations, absolutely.
False correlations. How do you avoid that?
There's a website on false correlations that I urge you to look at. It's hilarious.
It's just like falsecorrelation.com or something like that?
It's got to be something close to that.
Okay, we'll look it up and put it on the show notes. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. But anyway, so false correlations, they absolutely occur, right? So there could have been a process change in a mare that you didn't know about that caused the dip. And so now you're making a completely biased assumption by just purely looking at the data and not having it in reference with other data. Right. So because knowing that process change happened 6 months ago, that's also data. Right. But you won't find it in a BI system.
Right.
Right. That's up in here. That's if you just got hired on as the sales guy or as the sales VP to determine that, or the marketing VP. Right. And you don't have that frame of reference. That's very problematic for your looking at your data.
Interesting. There's a particular thing that happened to me one time where someone reported a big company. Typically, this stuff happens in big companies, right? Because you don't know, because you're like Kevin Bacon plus 5 people away from the person that actually knows what's going on. We're a small company, that Janice was out on leave, and but bigger company.
Yeah.
I was reported to a marketing meeting that we had these really sexy short forms, these little PPC forms. They were like tight. They were like 3 or 4 fields, got you converted, squeezed you in, nurtured you later. It was nice. And then we had this gigantic form, this organic page, a contact us page with like, I don't know, 18 fields. I was stupid. 18 fields asking you, your blood type. I don't know. It was crazy. But the report back said that that crazy page converted better to sales than the silly little PPC form. They're like, well, better quality people came from SEO than PPC, and we should ask people more questions, and we shouldn't pay as much for PPC because look, we get poor quality people. And I was like, what is going on? This is counterintuitive to my own experience. And so one of the things I did is I went and I sat with the salespeople and was chatting about it, like Columbo, like play dumb, but then you're really asking questions and being all friendly, trying to find what's going on. And
absolutely.
Come to find out, sales didn't know the PPC leads didn't have the opportunity to answer 18 questions. They thought everyone coming from the PPC form was given 18 questions and only filled out 6 or only filled out 5. So they thought the PPC folks were like shitty leads because who didn't care. Like, no, we don't care. Whereas the SEO ones were forced to fill out 18, and no one ever did. But like the 3 people that did, they would cherry pick those guys, go after them, and they would completely ignore PPC until like they were bored or they had a little extra time to go after them. So they were letting them die. The ones that were paying like $10 to $20 a click were dying on the vine, not getting called because no one communicated that these guys didn't have the option to fill out those other things. So crazy. That false correlations. Crazy. And that one's not even wild. Like, The Hobbit was released on DVD. So that's why sales went up. Like in this case, it was one of those things, talking to sales and marketing, alignment and that kind of thing. So, I mean, how do you address that if you're strictly on the analytics side or on one side? Or a big company like that? Or am I asking you to solve question, right? World hunger when I ask you that?
Yeah, no, realistically, that's exactly what it is, right? So I consult for Salesforce and VMware, right? So these are like 2 companies that have these problems quite frequently, right? You get but typically your upper management doesn't have as high of a turnaround or turnover as the guys underneath, typically, right?
Yeah.
And so you normally have that frame of reference, or you have other people that know that that frame of reference is there. So that's why that's why business analysts will never go extinct, right? Is because they're the ones that have that they have to know about that history, right? And so they're the ones who go around. And so let's say I just jumped into a business analyst role at Salesforce, right?
Sure.
That means that I'm going and I'm talking to all these different teams around me, finding out those process changes, finding out when did we last change this, and what's our, how are we tracking those changes? What format are we using in order to do so? Right. So whether they're getting tracked in, there's 3 different types of history change tracking.
Okay, sure.
And so it comes down to all of those things being applied. So sometimes you can see it on the data and you can say, oh, well, when I go back to 2016, it's different values on my pick list. So obviously there was a process change in there, right? And so then you figure out, well, how do those map to today's world so that I can actually see my year over year changes, right? And so that's the job of the business analyst and taking care of those sorts of things.
It sounds like people are the problem, but then people are also the solution for understanding your data.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's no way you're going to get a machine to tell you, oh, this maps to this,
right? When
it's a human-made process. Right. It's a human-made change, right?
Right.
And so even AI won't touch that, right? We're going to get into AI a little bit later today, hopefully.
We're definitely going to throw down the gloves on AI.
But yeah, because that is something that I distinguish as the VP or as the one that's creating the process, then I have to dictate that in the data. And if there's no mapping available, then you have bad quality data. And if you have got bad quality data, you ain't doing nothing. Right.
So true. Okay, so exploratory surgery. Hopefully, we find out what's wrong. Find the alien baby in the tummy, and that explains why you've been losing weight lately. Cool. So, what you said? There are other types.
That's a little backwards, isn't it?
Wow, losing weight because of an alien baby. I guess it's a small baby, but we'll talk about babies later.
Anyways, yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Because you got one on the way, right?
I do. So yes.
We'll get to that. We'll get the baby alien device later.
So yes, the next part that we run into is this idea of BI, right? Business intelligence, right? / advanced analytics, right? And I kind of group those two similarly. There is a slight difference between them. So BI is this idea of I know exactly what the KPI is, right? And we'll talk about KPIs in a little bit of detail here in a bit. But I know exactly what the KPI is, and I know how to obtain that KPI. I know the calculation. I know the filters, right? And so, and then advanced analytics is more on the statistical side, okay? But I kind of, again, I lump them into a general category of this BI analytics. It just depends on who's looking at the data.
Is the difference you know what you're looking at?
The difference is the person that's looking at it, I would say, actually. So if you've got a background in statistics, well, then you're going to want to use it, right?
Right.
That's pretty much what it comes down to. The average person can take requirements from a KPI, like from the business, right, and say, oh, okay, well then it looks like we've got to filter out record X, Y, and Z in order to get your.
What's a good example of this? A good example.
Yeah, absolutely. So, my favorite to go to is renewal rate. So if I want to say, all right, we were selling X number of licenses, and how many of those licenses renewed from last year to this year, right? And so, in order to get that kind of a calculation, you have to figure out how many licenses you sold last year.
Yeah.
Right. And only look at those contracts or look at all of the contracts from last year and see, well, where are you this year with those contracts? So let's say they
like a cohort kind of thing, or
so let's say the end date was or today's date is February 8th, right?
Nice.
So you're going to only look at the contracts with an end date before February 8th of last year, right? Because, or rather, with a start date of February before
last year, computer,
right? Yeah. So
Siri.
That way, you're only comparing the contracts that would have had to renewed in that period, right? Not the ones that are still running.
If they're still running, then, tricky, right? If you throw in this year's data, someone that bought yesterday, it's going to throw off your numbers.
Yeah, but the business is the one that tells you that, right? The business is the one that's like, yeah, we only want to see last year's records against this year's records, only for the ones that have had the option to renew.
Right. Absolutely.
Obviously. So
half the crew over here didn't have the option, but they make our renewal rate look great.
Absolutely. Well, actually, they wouldn't, because they haven't renewed yet. So that would actually reduce your numbers quite a bit.
Oh, okay. Unless you're looking at
you have a really high number from last year, but then a really low number from this year because your contracts just haven't renewed yet.
Right. Exactly. And as soon as that renewal date's up, everyone churns.
Absolutely. Now that's assuming you have a yearly renewal rate, right? Now, let's say there's some contracts that are monthly. We can get into that, and it'll get a lot deeper, and there's no real reason to do it.
Deep, dark, and statistics land. This is great.
So
everyone's like, screw this podcast. I'm out. I'm gonna go listen to Joe Rogan talk about LSD. But okay, keep going.
No. I'm gonna kind of halt it right there and not go any deeper. But
sure,
just this idea of being able to take that from the business, and the business says, yes, I want this, and then build it out in a report where you just filter out last year, you filter out this year, and then you just take one and divide it from the other. Right, and bam! Now you've got a renewal percentage.
So that's the BI side. You know what you're looking for.
You know what you're looking for. You know what the calculation is. Absolutely.
Now you're just trying to get pure data, purify. Look at that! You got the mug too. I got to get.
I do. And actually,
but it's blank.
You know, my wife bought me this for Christmas, and on the front, it's got this nice.
But she doesn't work for you.
So
right?
now I feel she does actually.
Oh, she does, and she bought you that still? Wow.
I know, right? Yeah, it's crazy. Well, it was more of a Michael Scott moment.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, so she was half serious.
She wanted everyone to think I bought it for myself, but
that's awesome.
So, anyways, I got a great wife.
Totally.
So the next part of analytics, let's move on to that.
Yeah, before you get yourself in trouble, right? Just say nice things.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Okay, so you go from exploratory, poking around, not sure why, throwing up different charts to see if there's some kind of correlations, avoiding the false correlations. Now we're getting into BI, where we know what we're looking for. Maybe it's a KPI. Hey, maybe hit KPI. What's your take? I mean, because you can have like 1,000 KPIs and they're not really KPIs anymore, right? That's just data.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, so and I'll preface this. This is a conversation that we have to go in much more in depth, but I'm not going to, obviously, for the time reasons.
Sure.
But in this particular, so I'll start at the overview. Let's say it that way.
Yeah.
I recommend no more than 5 KPIs. Usually I recommend only 3.
Okay? Yeah, I like 3.
Doesn't mean, so I typically go with 3. 5 is like the max.
Sure.
Now that's like per business unit, right?
Sure.
So you might have like 3 KPIs for the sales team, 3 KPIs for the marketing team, 3 KPIs for the support team, right? And now, doesn't mean that those KPIs can't have supporting metrics,
right? But
they're not KPIs. So I'm going to give you a really easy way to remember what a KPI is. Sure. Anything your company is willing to spend a shit ton of money on to increase that number, right? Or to make that number better, because not always is increasing good, right? But to make that number better, you're willing to spend a lot of money on to make it good. All right. So,
there's some goobers, right, that'll just spend money on anything.
Well, and that's exactly it, right? And so if you focus on too many things, then you've lost focus, right? That's the definition of focus, is just one thing at a time, right? Or just a few things at a time, things you can manage, right? So if you manage 3 KPIs and you just call the other ones supporting metrics,
right?
Things that kind of affect those major KPIs, right? So for, like, let's say for a marketing team, it's you want your major KPI is going to be clicks per dollar, right? That's usually a pretty
might be a good one. Valid revenue. Revenue is a great one.
Absolutely.
Contributing to the sales process. Probably new leads. My ABM folks are freaking out, having aneurysms right now. Count based. You could have accounts that are engaged, but
conversion rate.
Whenever you're fancy, the key point I think you're saying here is it's like 3 to 5, probably 3. If you got to go to 5, like what's going on here? What's so crazy about those other 2 that are just so necessary?
In a company like Salesforce, it's a little bit more understandable. They've got 20,000 employees, and so when you're at the executive level, of course you're going to have just a little bit more than the average company, right? But even so,
then, probably
even
still,
so, like it still brings it out just a little bit more than best practice.
I mean, Mark Benioff probably has three things. He's crushing it on his island. He's flying around doing hospital openings, calling up his team saying, "Where's this at? Where's this at? Where's this at?"
Where's my sales at?
Of course, he probably knows like 1,000 other things too. But there's probably a few things that he just really cares about. Now I'm going to compare myself. I don't know. That's a weird comparison, but
you got to get him on the show, man. You got to ask him what he cares about on a daily basis.
You know what? That would be funny, and we'll have little side pool bets to say how many. It's not even about what he cares about. It's like how many of the things he cares about. But like over at Cheshire, we have a scorecard that our leadership team fills out, and there's exactly to your point. There's only about 3 numbers for each department. There's a little more, but there's not more than 5, I don't think. And that's what I care about. And they're green if they're good, and they're red if they're bad. And it kind of bubbles up. So okay, KPIs. I like that. It's good.
Yep, absolutely. So, anyways, we can move on from KPIs, I suppose, at this point.
Yeah, we could. Are they dead? Did we murder them? I think
we murdered them. Yeah, they're gone now, man.
So so we've got alien baby surgery. We've got BI, and then now we've got what's next? There's 3, right?
Well, there are 3, and this is going to be your favorite. This is where we step into the world of artificial intelligence, where the alien babies take over the world and create these computers.
Yes, they finally hatched from the first one.
Yeah,
now they're crawling around.
Yep, and so somehow they lost weight, but
right.
So yes, artificial intelligence is the
third one.
Is the third one. It is. And it's I have to preface artificial intelligence with this
Please
idea of
freak out.
Yeah. Before you freak out on me, right? Is that I have to say it's not this idea of, like you brought up yesterday, Skynet, right? It's not this idea that the computer knows more than you and is going to be able to tell you what to do 100% of the time. Right. It's not this dictator telling you need to use this lead because it's going to get you a better conversion rate. No, I have not.
You haven't seen that? You got to see that.
Yeah.
That is what I think of when I think of AI. There's this robot, and the guy that created it was essentially like Mark Zuckerberg. But what they did is they basically, in the movie, they had Mark Zuckerberg and Larry Page. So they had basically the guy who created Facebook also created Google in this movie. So this guy's loaded, and he controls the world, and he's hidden away in his laboratory creating artificial intelligence. And I guess I can't do too much spoiler because you haven't seen it, but you should go see it. But naturally, this guy's all by himself, so he makes the AI a girl robot, and then the whole idea of this Turing test is really cool. It's really fascinating. But at the end, I'm not going to spoil it, but what you think happens when a machine, comes to life, they're smarter than you, and hopefully they're nice. They're not all nice. So that's what when I think of AI, I think of artificial intelligence. I think of that movie AI with that cute kid that was in a bubble, spaceship, and it's those kind of things where it is actually artificial intelligence. So people are they just using that term? I mean,
and that's exactly it. They're making people use the term AI to make it sound like it's smarter than it is.
Marketing.
Okay. Marketing. Yeah. Absolutely.
If you're using that term irresponsibly, check yourself.
Absolutely. Because it is a danger, right? There is there's a lot of fluff out there where there's companies out there that'll say, yeah, we're able to use AI in order to calculate your stuff. Well, really, that's been around for quite a while. Let's first call that out, right? Using an algorithm to define learning protocol or learning how to play a game, right? Let's take it a video game, right? They use these algorithms for 10 plus years of how to build an opponent on a computer, right? You
Okay.
use AI technically to do that, right?
I suppose I could create some program that learned how to play Mario. Like it would just keep doing it. You know, Mario 1, right?
Exactly.
And all my millennials are going, "What's that?" But anyways, so go look it up on your emulator. But so I could probably program something to just run around until it runs into like a little Koopa Troopa or something and dies and goes, "Okay, well, that's bad." Or it jumps, falls down a hole. That's bad. You could probably program that. But I don't know if that's, I mean, is that AI or is that just...
So any AI just refers to this idea of self-learning intelligence, right? And so what it does is, so every time that you run through, let's say in this example, Mario, what happens is it gives it another data point of what's a bad thing. And then every time it gets a little bit farther in the game, it realizes, oh, that's a good thing. So I'm going to continue doing what I did, right? Because computers aren't insane.
Right.
So it's going to continue doing what it did until it didn't work and try something new. And then if it still doesn't work, it's going to go back just a little bit further and see if there's something else it can do, and then back further until it gets past that point,
right,
of the bad thing, right?
But that's not gonna kill us. That's just helping us out.
Sure. It's not Skynet, but at the same point, artificial intelligence has this. Some of it doesn't even learn by itself. What you have to do is you have to actually program it to, and that's why you get you have to feed it in that data,
right?
And so when you're feeding that data in, it actually runs those same algorithms that it would run for Mario.
Sure.
Right, to say, oh, well, this is good and this is bad, and you set those thresholds, and you say, okay, now let's bring that do some regression testing, and you look at that data based on last year's data or something like that, and see, well, did it have similar values, or and then you look at it against this year's data, and you do a regression model testing, and you see, okay, well, how close is it to our actual data? Let's look at some real live examples, and then you'd start with like some A/B testing to make sure that, or to see which model is going to be more effective for your reps. Because something else that happens, as you saw with your example there of the leads, the sales reps didn't know that the leads were more or less qualified or more qualified or whatever it is there. When you provide a sales rep with a number that says this lead is going to be a 10 out of 10, first of all, you get cherry picking, right? But let's say you fix the cherry picking problem.
True.
Okay, so which you can. So let's say you fix the cherry picking problem, and that guy sees that he's a 10, right?
Okay. Yep.
It's already subconsciously and changed in my mind that I'm going to give this lead everything I got. Right. And then you go see a 1 or a 5, or let's go with a 5. Right.
Yeah. And
you're going to get treated differently as a customer now.
Yeah. Interesting.
Right. And so you have this idea that AI will actually, now, hopefully it's pretty close, but at the same time, you will always change how you treat those customers at a subconscious level. And really it comes out. Right.
That's interesting because I love aligning in Pardot. We work with Pardot a lot, and there's a lead grade and a lead score, and having a two-dimensional lead rating system is actually part of our CSI. It's one of the maturity model steps. It's way better than having a single metric. That way you can see who's engaged, but then also what are the qualities they have that make them good. But even that aside, your psychology point is well taken, because if I tell someone they're an A, they may perk up, reach out to them quicker, and may treat them with full gusto. Whereas if they're a C, or if it's a bad rep and it's a bad lead, well,
you reach out to them at the first point of the day when you're fresh. You've got to, as a sales guy, and you're doing, like, let's say, cold calling. I've done cold calling. It's not very fun in the sense that you just call and you get exhausted after time, right? And so, but if you're able to call these guys in the beginning and give them the best voicemails, give them the best everything, that number 5, if they'd received the best, who says they wouldn't buy? Sure, historically they wouldn't, but how long has that been going on where you just haven't been reaching out to the 5s with everything you got? With the best, and so I think it always comes down to the person, right? the person reading the data is always going to have some form of bias. Even myself.
Yeah, the person reading the data. Yeah.
Yep. Everybody has bias in some way, shape, or form, especially with data.
Right. Especially if they have a way of approaching it. Like me with that previous example, my experience was the opposite. So I saw that data and like immediately rejected it.
Yeah.
Whereas someone else saw that data and was like, ooh, we have not to say either one of us was correct and to look into it, but I could certainly, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Trick everybody, try to trick everybody, give them all 10s and they'll stop believing the number too, So
absolutely. So there's no winning, right? It's just do the best you can, right? You may as well use AI.
Right.
But
Now, okay. So AI, it's not really AI. What would you, if you rename that third one, what would you call it?
Man, that's a tough question. I probably
here you go.
I probably
would. My brain smoke the first 10 minutes of this, so I'm going to make your brain smoke now. So it's like fair.
Well, yeah. So honestly, I probably wouldn't because
you wouldn't.
No, I wouldn't because. What? Well, think about it this way. What's a computer? Right? If it's creating a number off of its own data, is that not artificial? And is it not intelligent?
Yeah, but it's also maybe there's like a spectrum. It's kind of
and that's exactly it, right? It's so like there does need to be this idea of, well, how do we define the difference between the Skynets, right? And having a simple learning algorithm.
Did you hear about? I think it was either Facebook or Google. They had an AI experiment. They had to shut down. It might have been Facebook. One of those two. I mean, they're both Skynet anyways, but the AI that they created its own language.
Yeah.
It was talking to itself, to its friends.
It was Google, wasn't it?
Was it Google? And they couldn't read it. They didn't know what it was saying. They had to shut it down because it was probably like, okay, listen, when she goes in her coffee break, we're going to murder this guy. And you have no idea what they're saying. Like the machines are about to like murder you and you have no idea because you don't speak that new language they invented.
Yeah.
So this is the third one. Is this machines murdering you? Is the third layer?
Well, I think there's this idea of, and I if I had to rename it, I suppose I would call it artificial analytics.
Ooh, you know what?
That sounds really slick, right?
You better go trademark that before we publish this podcast.
Yeah,
I like it. I like it, man.
Yeah, AA, right? Now it's Alcoholics Anonymous.
There you go.
Okay, so forget that name.
You could have a 10-step program to analytics.
Yeah, we're pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that seriously though, that would probably be a much better name for it because, there are certainly. I mean, you take. Now it's escaping me. What's Intel's machine there? They have
IBM's, like
IBM. Yeah. IBM. Watson. Yes.
It's not Deep Blue. Is that something else? Deep Blue?
I don't know Deep Blue. I'm not heavily invested in the AI world at this point.
Sure. It seems like a lot of people are, or at least they are in marketing.
Exactly. They are in marketing. And it's the same as, 4 years ago, they were heavily invested in this exploratory analytics in the BI. And now we're kind of shifting that phase. And so in order to get people to adopt analytics, right? First it was, let's adopt CRMs. Like let's adopt this idea of putting everything into a database, get your data out there. Then it's, let's actually take your data and let's make something useful out of it. Let's explore that data.
Right.
And now it's becoming this, all right, now that you have your data in a clean format, or in a format that's readily available, that you understand it a little bit, let's bring it into AI and let's let the computer tell you what that means now.
Right.
Because it has to be a progression. It can't just be one. Then you can't go from data to AI instantaneously. You have to first explore that data and truly know what you're looking at. Then you have to define some KPIs so that when you go to the AI side, you know exactly what metrics that you're going to be checking against.
Interesting. Interesting. I've also heard like augmented intelligence, the idea of having the computer help you, but maybe it doesn't know the meaning of the data and teaching it the meaning of the data might be harder than just having it show you what trends it's seeing and maybe what correlations it's finding, and then use a human to then come in. I mean, there's a lot of people that, there's the path of like, let's artificial intelligence, this whole thing. And some people are like, let's use computers to augment and to do the parts they're really good at, which is the calculations, the computations, and let's use humans. To your point, you'll always need a BI. You'll always need someone to really look at that data and then maybe make those comparisons and calculations, understanding what the values mean.
Yeah, absolutely. A robot will basically always need to know when to be tuned.
Right.
At least for now, until we can figure that part out.
Right.
But it's always stepping stones, right? And
Sure.
it's just like with the Industrial Revolution, right? We came through this and we built out these machines that would actually do all this, creating all these weapons and all of that for us, right?
Right.
And so, it brought down the need for factory workers.
Sure.
But then it also opened up jobs, repairing those machines, and building the machines, and
Right.
and along with it bringing us to where we are today.
Yeah, I see that there's always that need for the person to interpret. It's almost like I don't need to spend the time, the money to have the machine understand it as much as I need to have it help me do the parts I'm not going to be good at. So interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
or that it's too costly for you to learn.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if it costs, $10 an hour for someone to sit there and move something from this piece to this piece or inspect it or whatever, you
Sure.
create a few sensors, you're bam, done.
Totally.
And so now it's 30 cents for the electricity, and then maybe maintenance once a month is, $50,
Right. Go on Amazon Web Services and just scale it like crazy.
Exactly.
So, okay. So we got those three. I know we were chatting about Salesforce. So you worked at Salesforce for many, many moons, right?
I did, yes. So I started off first as a consultant for them for about a year and a half. Then they hired me on directly and I worked for them probably 4 years. And then now,
which office were you out west?
So I was actually out in Portland. Yeah. So I was one of the first 5 in the Portland office. It was awesome.
They've got offices everywhere.
Yeah,
I haven't been to that one. That's cool.
Well, it's actually in Hillsborough, not Portland, but they call it the
same. People ask me where I'm from, and it's New Hampshire, and I go Boston. It's like, New Hampshire. Oh, is that in the United Kingdom? And I was like, do I sound like I'm British? Maybe after a couple beers, but yeah. So I saw Boston. So Portland makes sense. Okay, so you're out there. I mean, how was that? What was that like? Because I know a lot of folks listening to this, have Salesforce. A lot of them love it. They're all about the Ohana. Like, what was it like?
Absolutely. That's a great question. Personally, I mean, it's kind of like love at first sight. The moment I laid my eyes upon Salesforce, I never let go.
Awesome.
It really was. So, because at that time, before I started with consulting for them, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was like a college dropout. I'm like, well, what do I do with my life?
Wait, and they know that too?
Oh yeah.
But they're finding that out now.
No, this is the first time they're going to find it out. Yeah.
You heard it here, folks.
Yeah, you heard it here first. This is truly hardcore. All right.
Did not actually get his master's from MIT in data calculation.
But and from that moment,
sure.
Just because I dropped out doesn't mean I didn't stop learning. I love
100%
learning. And it's one of those situations where the only reason I dropped out is because it was preventing me from learning.
Well, what were you doing? What was your major?
Pharmacology.
Pharmacology?
Yeah.
Holy
then I became a pharmacy technician and I was like, yeah, this is out. It's too boring for me. So
pharmacology.
Yeah. Yeah. And anyways, we'll move on from that.
Oh, no. Tell me more about this. Where'd you grow up? Are you like from the Midwest or something?
No, I'm actually
upstate New York. PH. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
I just had a Thursday moment. I was thinking about you farming.
No, I was a legalized pill pusher, man.
You were going to be a pharmacist.
Yeah, maybe. I'm glad I stopped that, though.
How many years did you do?
Oh, no, it was only like 2 years.
2 years, okay. And you're I'm out.
Yeah, I was done.
Everyone's out partying, and you're trying to memorize what happens when you have too much Robitussin. And...
Oh, I wasn't even to that point yet. I was at organic chemistry, and I couldn't understand my teacher at all.
Org chem kills many a chemist.
Well, he was English was, let's say, his maybe second or third language. So
Sure.
So it was a little difficult to understand him. But
so that wasn't your flavor.
I gave up, and I was like, all right, I really like tech, so let's go there. And I found Salesforce, got my certs, and so I got like 3 of the certs pretty much immediately.
You used Trailhead for that, or
no? It wasn't around then.
Wasn't around then.
This was,
right.
Yeah, this was 7 years ago.
Back in the day.
Yeah, no, it was 19.
No kidding.
And, I got my certs, and they put me on support for analytics. And I've seen thousands of customers and how they do analytics, and walked them through their own stuff and how to get
awesome.
X, Y, Z. And worked my way up from there, and eventually was on the product team for Einstein Analytics, which is previously known as Wave.
I definitely want to talk about that. But before that, you just mentioning that story, and now you run a company, right? So, which we'll get to also. But so many times I'm talking to folks that are new into marketing, or I've had some recent conversations with some awesome people that are like just finishing school, and it's good that they didn't meet me but while they're still in school, because sometimes all I'll say is look, go hit Trailhead. It's free. There's all these certification programs, and there's companies that will hire you without the college degree just because you've got some domain expertise in Salesforce. Yep. It's a hot commodity.
It absolutely is.
There's lots of money to be made there. There's lots of people that need help with that. And you're like a living proof that's certainly possible. And you didn't even have Trailhead around. So you had to learn this. How did you learn it back then? Like FAQs, and was there
study guides?
Study guides? Okay. Yeah.
Study guides. That's literally it, and experience on the platform.
Experience, yeah.
Well, and actually, that kind of led to some problems too, because the questions that they ask are very specific to the knowledge level that they ask it. Because there are other ways to do it, and those are in the answers. But they let's say the 201, right? The advanced or the administrator exam.
Sure. Yep.
If you know how to do like formulas and triggers and things like that, then yeah, of course there's a way to do it. And so I get those questions wrong, right? Because it's like, that's not at an admin level, you wouldn't know that.
I hate that.
Yeah. It's one of those, like, you've learned more than you should have in order for that exam. And it's like, guys, really? Like, all right. But so I passed the first 2 exams, and then took the 301, the developer exam, and failed that the first time. And then
I hear a lot of people, those tests, you just got to keep at it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, this is before Trailhead, before there wasn't any training classes or anything like that. Right. Or there was, but they were so expensive that I'm not going to go take care of that. So, and I was working at the time, so it's kind of difficult to go out for a week and
totally.
So, but anyways,
Salesforce, you were working with Einstein. So talk to me about, I hear there's multiple, now there's been some branding changes.
Yes, branding changes.
I've changed my logo before, so I'm not going to fault anyone for branding changes, but there's this thing that was called Wave, Einstein, and then Wave again, and then something else.
Maybe you
let
me step in here. Let's prevent some confusion, or solve this here.
Yes.
So Salesforce changed the name of what was previously known as Wave or Analytics Cloud. Okay,
so start at the beginning. What was it for? What was it at first?
Kona, but this is before it was a launch, so it wasn't even Kona technically.
Oh, really? They called it Kona.
They called it Kona at first. Yeah,
was that the super secret squirrel?
That was actually they had made all the Dreamforce stuff for Kona. They'd made all the banners and everything, and then 3 days before Dreamforce, or something, like a week before Dreamforce, Mark Benioff goes, "No, I don't like it. Let's change it." And so they had
to. They were going to call Dreamforce Kona?
No. They were going to call Wave, Einstein Analytics. They were going to call that Kona. And they were going to launch it to the market 4 years ago, or 5 years ago now. They were going to call it Kona.
No kidding.
But a week before Dreamforce, Mark was like, "No, we're doing it. We're going to call it Wave." Right. And so no one knew what to call it at that point. But technically, Wave was the platform. Analytics Cloud was the software, or what was the program. Okay. So
Wave Analytics Cloud. Got it. By the way, a friend of mine, shout out to Dave. Dave gets shout outs all the time. But he was actually running a company called Kona that was doing search for Salesforce. So not that he interrupted the whole process, but that's interesting that there was already
Dave.
For this confusion, but
all right. But that was 5 years ago. So then they called it Analytics Cloud for a while. And then very recently, they renamed it to Einstein Analytics, not to be confused with Einstein and not to be confused with Einstein Discovery. Okay,
getting on my notepad.
All right, yes. So let's go through that real quick. The easiest way to understand the three. Einstein is directly within the Salesforce platform. Okay, the Force.com platform. It's
not even in the cloud. It's in the Force itself.
It's in the Force, yes.
In the Force.
So it's in. So it works natively with Sales Cloud and Service Cloud, and all the native clouds there.
What is it?
So it is it's a form of AI, right?
Back to that again.
Yep. So, but it's kind of like a lesser version where it only works with the Salesforce data. Okay, it doesn't really take anything else.
And it probably doesn't want to murder you.
This is to the best of my knowledge. I have not studied Einstein. I have not studied Einstein Discovery, but to the best of my knowledge, this is what this is. Okay.
Fair enough.
So hopefully I'm not wrong on this. And if I am, please someone shoot me an email.
Or someone tweet you at
tweet me at Analytics CC.
Analytics CC. You heard it.
Yeah, Analytics CC.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead. So then we've got Einstein Discovery. Okay. Einstein Discovery is the AI that sits on the analytics platform, okay, or Wave as it used to be called. So I forget who they purchased. They purchased a company like a few years ago, and this is just the new rebranding of that company.
Is Discovery Wave?
I don't remember. I'm sorry?
Is Discovery Wave?
No, it is. It's.
But it sits on.
Assuming that Wave was the if we could call Wave the platform, I know it's not the platform name anymore, but I don't know what the platform name is anymore. So I'm just going to call it Wave for now in this conversation. So it sits technically on that Wave platform, and you use Einstein Analytics as getting the data in, the ETL side.
Einstein Analytics, is that one or two?
So is that one or two? What do you mean? That's the third.
Einstein Analytics is the third one.
Yeah, Einstein Analytics is the third one.
Okay.
It is the basically the end-to-end BI, right? It allows you to go from taking this, taking your data out of your system, wherever that system might be, and then it goes to allowing you to do exploratory analytics, allowing you to do BI on it, and then taking a step further and allowing you to actually take actions off of that analytics. Cool. Right, which in turn brings records right back into Salesforce. So you could
join
actually
the data right on that third one.
You can join the data from any other system with Salesforce data or with whatever data you want to join it with, and then you can perform your, like I said, your exploration. But the most important thing there is that you don't need to no longer do you need to export it from your BI tool to like a PowerPoint or to a to Excel or something like that in order to get your insights and to show them to your VP or anything like that. And you can actually take actions right there. So let's say, again, back to our previous example, a mayor was falling behind. So you explore a mayor a little bit. You find out what KPIs is behind in, things like that.
Right.
And then you say, okay, it looks like I need to make a note for all of these records. And I need to say, hey, let's talk about all these in our meeting, in our one-on-one. So I hit enable mass actions, or I click on mass action and I say, put note on these records, right? Or something like that. And so you can actually, you can create like a visual force page or global actions framework to make any kind of action you could possibly think of. Right back into Salesforce. So it's very powerful, right? So, and that's the whole point of analytics. If you can't take actions off your analytics, then what's the point? You know, sure, it's good to find the trends and know where you are, but what are you going to do from there?
Right.
And so, and that's actually where AI also tries to help, which is in the future, right? It tries to project where you're going to be, but that's a dangerous game in itself.
It is
a very dangerous game. And so, but if you can take actions in the here and now based off of some information that you're seeing or some outlying data that shouldn't be there, that's pretty powerful.
Absolutely.
So, and you make your changes one piece of data at a time.
Yeah, and I love that. I've seen some of the reporting. You can chat or tag people with it, and you can take actions. I love the action taking part of it. It keeps it real.
Yeah, Absolutely.
All right, so we're using the word Einstein a little bit here, folks. We may want to pick a different scientist for the next brand. Just saying. Hashtag. Just saying. So that makes sense. That's cleared up in my mind that there's a lot of this, and it's a deep well. So at some point, you sprang loose from Salesforce, and you start out in your own direction. So
yeah,
how did that go, and like why, and what are you solving now? What
great question.
What's the company doing?
Great question. So when I was at Salesforce,
don't say AI either.
no, not yet. We'll get there eventually, but I don't personally believe the market's ready for it. But that's just me. So what we're doing. So when I was at Salesforce, there was I trained like over 600 people on how to implement Einstein analytics.
Nice.
Okay? So, I got to see the mass. Yeah, the third one. I got to see the mass marketplace and kind of how everyone was responding to it. I was a part of the go-to-market team, so I saw these large customers that I can't name, but I saw these large customers that and how they responded to the Einstein analytics, right? And so, and they loved it, and they but they also had some problems with it, right? And so after about 2 years or a year and a half, let's say, of being on that team of the go-to-market side, I realized those are problems I can go solve.
Was it the gaps that we were talking about earlier, that they could use the tool but didn't know how to use it, or what were the problems you were seeing?
The biggest problems that I've seen is the time it takes to go to market with it, the time it takes to learn everything you need to learn to be effective with it. Right? So the tool itself is absolutely amazing. I love it. But the learning curve, and it's getting smaller and smaller, don't get me wrong.
Sure.
But like when I first started, the learning curve was about a year and a half in order to like master it. Okay.
Jeez.
Keep that in mind, master. I'm saying master it.
Right.
Because it's a big tool, right? It takes end-to-end analytics, right? Sure. Good company name, by the way. All right. And then, so then you've got, I lost my train of thought. All right. All right. Where was I?
Yeah, where were you? We were talking about, so you're in there and people were using it. They loved it. It was powerful.
So they loved it. But then the problem came up where you've got that pure. Yeah, I know.
Where were we, man? We were talking about
too many
AI. We should just said robots. We should have gone back to
man. All right.
So there's some gaps. It's hard to implement.
The learning curve, right? Yeah. So it was very difficult. Every single person, and this is still true to this day, every person that wants to implement Einstein analytics needs a partner. Okay.
Got it.
And so, and that's still true today. And so I sought out as a company, I left 2 years ago almost. And with the goal to make it so that anybody could walk in and implement Einstein analytics in a day. Okay.
Wow.
That was my goal.
To take it from a year and a half to a day.
To take it from a year and a half to a day. Now, Salesforce did a lot of work to make it so that it's no longer a year and a half.
Got it.
So they're down to, I'd say, 3 to 6 months, depending on the person.
Okay.
And you'll be pretty well off at that point.
Nice.
Okay. But what I've done is I finally, and we launched a Dreamforce, our tooling suite. But basically what we do is we have products that'll build all of the data, as long as it's like Salesforce data, we'll copy all of the reports that you have in your environment. So you just check a box for, I want this report from opportunities, this report from leads, whatever you want. Sure. It'll take all of those, it'll take the structure of the report, it'll take the fields from the report, and then it'll bring it into Einstein Analytics natively, okay, within minutes, okay? Then that creates your data. So now your data is all set. Now, normally what you would have had to do is go and recreate the data models yourself. Okay, so you would have had to go and reselect all the fields you want and go through all that, do your augmentations. And
data modeling, architecture, the rabbit hole. I could see why it would be the 3 to 6 months. There's that underlying work that has to
and you need to understand data
structure
architecture.
The data, understand. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Now, most people, most Salesforce admins, let's say it this way, or business analysts, understand how to build reports in Salesforce. They understand that data architecture pretty well. right? And so me knowing Salesforce was like, hey, well, let's make it easy for those guys because they're the ones that are going to be implementing Einstein Analytics anyways.
Yeah.
And let's make it a button.
Yeah.
Right? So I did. So I made it a button. So that one is very helpful. Then from there, what we do is we actually have another set of tooling that builds dashboards for you. All right. Now, traditionally, in order to build these dashboards, you'd have to understand to build complex dashboards, or I'm going to call them useful dashboards, right? Like truly advanced dashboards that are going to help everybody, not just me in this one specific scenario, but all these different scenarios. I can go to that one dashboard rather than going to 10 different dashboards based on this, that, and that. Right. And so what we do is we follow, I saw the repeated use cases in the marketplace of just show me my data. Let me explore just this one data set, right? Let me explore all my opportunities and go from there. Right? That's one normal use case that everybody wants to see. And then you've got, well, let me see it. Let me see my pipeline opportunities that are trended over time, right? So if I'm snapshotting my data every month or every week or something like that, and I want to see like how the pipeline has been changing over time, or what the average number of days it's in these stages.
So these are like the useful reports.
Yeah, exactly. And so we built out these templates. We templatized the building of dashboards to the point where you click on a button and you choose the data sets, and then you hit auto generate, and it finds the fields we believe that you're going to want, but you can change if you need to.
That sounds kind of AI-like to me, right there.
That's not AI, though. Okay. That's not.
You're not going to claim Skynet yet. Okay.
No, not AI. Because it's
smart. Just a little smart.
It is intelligent, but it's not.
It's artificial.
It's not. It's not created from the computer, though. So it's not. I created that logic.
You created it. Yeah.
So it's anyways. So you hit auto generate, and it builds out a dashboard for every one of those data sets, and then from there you build out like your color schemes, your logos, you build out the layout that you want one time, and then you hit auto generate, and it comes out looking like your stuff every time. So it's nice and slick, and it makes it look like you did a hell of a lot of work in a day. Right, or in really the process, if you got someone that knows what they're doing, if you got a real that's gone through it. So like me, I could walk through it in 10 minutes, and I could have their whole environment pretty much set up from it.
Yeah, you were showing me in the demo when we were in New York together. You were showing me that essentially in just a few minutes.
Yeah, you didn't even see the auto generate stuff. That's new.
I didn't. You were describing that normally people would be paying. You mentioned the partners; they'd be paying their agencies. You mentioned several days, right, for people to build.
Oh yeah, easily. So if you have, let's just say you want a single data set and you want a single dashboard. That's at least a week implementation where they're going to charge you about $10K.
Jeez.
So, and that's the average partner. Okay. You go to a Deloitte or a Blue Wolf or any of the bigger guys, and they'll take double.
Right.
And they'll take double. Right.
Yes, they will.
So they'll 2 weeks and $20K. So now I can do it literally for, 1/10 of the price and 1 hour.
Jeez. I once, one of those big ones you just mentioned, called us up and was like, do you need help with Pardot? And I was like, fancy that they would ask me that and not look up our profile to see that we actually dominate Pardot. But I was like, sure, yeah, let's set up a sales call. Tell us what you can do. And so they were on this call and they said, well, normally we do, X, Y, and Z, kind of like we were saying in 1 week. But for them, it was something like, normally our minimum was 40 hours a month, but we had to double that to 80 because we just weren't getting anything done with 40 hours. And I was like, that's like the big agency word, right? We couldn't get anything done with 40 hours, so we doubled it.
But that's why they're the big guys, man.
That's why they're the big guys. I guess that's right, So so that turned all into like an hour, is what you're saying, or it turned into like a couple buttons.
Yeah, no, exactly. Now it's just a couple buttons, and not only that, but the maintenance going forward. Let's say because your business is going to change, right?
For sure. Yep.
So when your business changes, it's again you just go back and you hit those buttons again, and you're done.
The report might change, but that's okay because make a new report.
We built in a maintenance. Yeah, we built in a maintenance model so that you can actually maintain your stuff within literally minutes, rather than actually maintaining it through JSON and SACL and fun other languages.
See, people don't understand that too. That oftentimes when things are easy, there's things behind the scenes that aren't. Like, let's say like an API connection between one app to another, like Pardot to one of the other apps it connects to. Mm-hmm. If anything changes in the API of either one of those parties, even something small, I don't want to say it as a semicolon, but something as small as like a capital or a lowercase, it could potentially cause one of or both of those teams to rewrite the way that their API talks to the other company. Oh, not totally rewrite it, but it's like hours of work potentially, or even maybe they didn't even tell you that they changed this, and you have to sort of troubleshoot, figure out. It happens all the time. So it's almost like everyone's asleep in their warm, comfy beds, but meanwhile the API battles are being waged back and forth. So when you mentioned like when companies change, I could easily see that. Like in if I was paying the big guys to do 80 hours a month and some data changes, maybe I call my opportunities with a different name now, or one little small change, maybe we don't call them leads, we call them leads too, or something. And that change, that
happens, man. I've seen that.
It does. And I have to now go back and say, well, hey, big guy, Blue Wolf or whatever, this tiny little minute change happened. And they'd go, oh, let's look at it. But it'll take us 20 hours to look at it. Yeah. Shots fired. I'm just calling Blue Wolf out. I don't know why. But so one of these companies will be doing this, and 20 hours. We looked at it. Okay, that's going to require 120 hours of retooling. You're like, I only changed a word. Yeah. Or maybe I didn't even want to change it. Maybe someone higher up in the hierarchy said, you know what? Let's change. Let's call it differently. And they're like, but okay, you just have to. And then it requires retooling. It happens
in Salesforce, models. It's the same thing. But the difference is when they ask me to do it, it takes me about 30 seconds to go fix it.
Because it's tied to the report, right? So they can change the report. They don't have to worry about data modeling or architecture. Change the report. You hit your button again. It comes over. Hit another button. Yeah.
You got it.
That's cool, man.
You got it.
It's exciting. So you've been doing this for what, 2 years now?
Almost 2 years. April 4th, it'll be 2 years.
How's it going? You got your lovely wife is one of your employees.
She's one of my employees,
maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. And then so then I've got 5 other employees.
Right. Actually, on.
Now it's 4. Unfortunately, I had to. I didn't get rid of him. He left on his own free will, and actually a fantastic employee. I'd love to keep him, but he had other callings.
It happens, man. People just got to do what they're passionate about.
Absolutely. I encouraged him to leave, actually. I said, dude, look, I can't stop you from this. Like, that's an amazing opportunity. If I were you, I'd take it. Like, just being frank.
Yeah, it used to really weird me out, but now I'm just kind of, sometimes I'll have like a sad face, but I'm also happy for them. It's like bittersweet. You're like,
it is.
That's amazing. I want you to be happy and succeed. And whatever time we are together, like a little tour of duty, it was awesome. And so wish you well. But hey, if it sucks out there, you can always come back. And
that's exactly it. Yeah, totally. It's like the door is always open for you, man. Like,
totally.
You more than proved yourself to me in the first week, so I'm good.
So best website for the people to go to find out more about this?
Absolutely. Just analyticscc.com.
That's short.
Sweet. So Analytics Cloud Consulting, CC.
It's not Casey Cheshire. It's
no, it's not. Yeah, sorry, man.
I thought that was like a tribute.com to me.
It was intentionally going to be initially. I actually changed my whole website URL for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. See, guys, like this is just great. It's just
a blossoming friendship.
Blossoming. Yes. Now, meanwhile, I'll be changing my domain as well, so nobody can find anything now at this point.
Yes.
But right on. So, hey, this has been fascinating, but I got to bring it up before we let you go. So, you mentioned you're expecting a little one, and this is the first one on the way.
It is indeed, and I am stoked. My wife is stoked. April 1st, it's an April Fool's baby and an Easter baby, so I'm excited about that.
Wow, April Fool's, that'd be a heck of a great birthday.
Absolutely.
The other day, maybe last year, April Fool's, I put on Facebook that I was moving to Atlanta.
Okay.
And no winky face, just move into Atlanta. The house is on the market, or they accepted our offer, moving to Atlanta. You know, And I still have people saying, "You're in Atlanta now, right?" And I'm like, "No, that was like an April Fool's joke from 2 years ago." So
yeah, it's interesting how many people don't understand an April Fool's joke is, on the first of April, they still don't get it.
Yeah, I guess it takes a little explaining. No, just kidding, JK. But that'd be great. So I mean, that's a good time for a birthday. So have you been getting a lot of like advice, picking up any books on that? Parents.
Yeah. I get a lot of advice, but to be honest, like I try to tune out as much as possible.
That's a smart move right there. Smart.
I mean, to be honest, like, if a drug addict can do it, I'm sure I can do it.
We were talking about that, right?
Yeah.
It's like
it'll be difficult. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Like I understand that it's going to be difficult. I understand that it's going to be a wild adventure, but I look forward to that. Yeah. Difficulty is part of life. Let's do it.
Totally, man. So, and you know what most of what happens too is the advice you get. It didn't be so negative. Like, oh, this is so horrible. And you have to watch out for this.
Yeah. And it's like, really guys, like, and it has to do a lot with, I take advice very seriously, only from people that, have a positive outlook on life itself.
Yeah, smart.
Because so many people just give advice out of our own biases. Well, I mean, all of us do, right? It's out of our own biases. And if you haven't come out to as a person to an area where you're able to say, no matter what I'm going through, no matter what I see in life, it doesn't matter. Like whether we're going through financial problems or relationship issues or something like that. Like if you can't just find like the joy in life, then I hate to be you.
Yeah, right. And then I definitely don't want to take your advice because
I definitely don't want to take your advice in it. But I do keep a lot of people in my circle of trust, if you will, that are very wise and very knowledgeable in these areas. And, I mean, my parents did a great job in raising me, and I'm thankful for them to that. And I'll of course use their advice,
Yeah, totally. And that's really a good example, is super helpful. But then I think we kind of just know too, this intrinsic feel that this feels right. And if you don't, there's books, but
well, and that's the thing is like everyone's going to make their own mistakes, and again, I'm one who loves learning from my mistakes. I learn all the time, and I allow my people to make mistakes.
Yeah.
I love when they do. I say, good, I'm so glad you did. And then it blows their mind because they're like, well, wait a minute, but I messed that up. Yeah. Will you mess it up next time? No. Oh, there you go.
Cool. Hey, as long as you learn from it, right? Man. As long as you're not repeating the same thing over and over.
Like growth is a part of life. It's the biggest part. And if we're not growing in life, then we're not building relationships and all these other things. And what's the point?
Totally. So, the advice my wife and I give, it's always been, it's not as bad as everyone else will tell you. Right? It's not. Yes, to your point, there's the crazy nights. It's almost like a movie the first couple of weeks where you're like kind of sleeping, but it's fun. It's like, I don't know. It's like staying up late at college. Now you're doing it for a reason. And so it's not nearly as bad as people put it out to be. It's awesome. And it's like a next level of a little nugget that you love. More than so I actually learned like true, real, like deep that kind of love from my kids, because with your wife it's that partnership, but with kids they're so vulnerable that I really learned a lot from them on that. So yeah, it's awesome, man. And what's funny is you'll see there's like the people that haven't had a kid yet and that have, and they sort of have this understanding. And then if you ever have a second one, the first one, we were saying this earlier, like you treat it like, oh, it's so fragile. And that doesn't mean you need to throw your babies around here, people, but like, really, really delicate. And you get all making sure, people are washing their hands before they touch your baby, which is probably a good idea anyways, but you're really concerned about come baby too. You're not on the changing table anymore. You're on the floor, you're on the floor doing what you got to do, changing that diaper. But initially it's like the baby warmer with people will give you, we got like 3 diaper, wipe warmers, like, because the cold wipe will make them, I don't know. But anyways, there's some crazy stuff out there, man. It's crazy, but it's fun. So
I'm excited.
Enjoy. I'm glad you get that spirit, because that'll be what's most fun. As long as you can laugh at yourself. Hey, look, it's 2 a.m. We're both up and our kid's sleeping. Like, Of course. This is, of course, how it would happen. So that's great, man. Hey,
Yeah.
where can people find out more about you? I know you've thrown out some Twitter. What's good for you on Twitter? What's good for you, web address, all that. Just throw that out there one more time so people can. And now, can they go there and learn more about analytics as well? If they want to follow up, is there some resources as well for that?
Yeah, good question. So, yes, the analyticscc.com website.
Okay.
It has quite a few resources. I will admit I do need to update them a little bit on the resource side. It's been a little while since I've updated those. However, there's honestly, I would go to if I wanted to know more about, let's say, Einstein analytics, right?
Yeah.
The community is the place to be.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the reason that I don't really take care of it on my website.
Sure.
Is because the community is just fantastic.
It really is.
It's one thing that Salesforce does extremely well is their communities.
For sure.
Right? And getting data, getting information out there and whatnot.
And that's success.salesforce.com, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, I would just send them there before I'd send them on my website. That's just...
That's entirely selfless of you.
Right. And I'm all about, well, I want to make sure they're successful. I could care less if they come to my website, to be honest. Like,
sure.
It's about you and your success journey, not about
100%.
me being involved. Like, if you can be successful without me, awesome. I'm glad you can. But I know there's a lot that can't. And that's why I'm here.
And I'll say it ... And, the people that they'll be still doing it, 3 to 6 months later. Meanwhile, they could have been, clicking a few buttons.
Yep.
Every time the data model changes. So awesome, man. Well, hey, thanks again for coming out.
Yeah.
This has been great. We'll have to do it again and maybe
Absolutely.
check in after the new one's here.
Yeah.
And see, see how awake you are at that point. Talk more about AI and maybe some SpaceX while we're at it.
SpaceX. All right. Yeah. I watched that video.
Dude,
there was something on LinkedIn the other day, right?
Oh, the Falcon Heavy, the launch.
Yeah.
Dude, I watched that and I was like, man, it was like kind of, I'm kind of a rocket nerd, I guess, but I was watching that going, man, that is so cool. I got to see that in person. We got to have like a in-person viewing of that. They had some tickets too, where you could watch it like a mile and a half away, sold out, like way sold out. You couldn't even, I was looking on like StubHub to try to find tickets for that launch, but they'll have another one, have I'll catch it. I think the next one's in June. So.
Yeah, let's go together. How about that?
Let's do it.
Seriously, I'll go.
Okay. June.
Yeah. All right.
Done.
Let's do it.
All right, sweet. Well, hey, thanks, man. It was great chatting, and everyone listening. This is the end of the show, and we'll catch you all in the next one. Take care.
Cheers.